So here we have a small steel mount, here we have a small Echo mount, and here we have a small Husky mount. So you can see where that hole and those two are the tensioner holes. That's the oiler hole for the steel. You can see where the tensioner holes and the opposite oiler hole for the that's for Echo. And then you can see Husky oiler hole, and then that's the matching one for the Sugihara. So you can see how one bar can then fit multiple chainsaws. And if you only have one bar fitting multiple chainsaws, it saves you a lot of bother in terms of chain sizes, etc., etc. So if you've been chainsaw carving, pretty much all the smaller chainsaw carving bars, other than the ones made by steel, have a universal mount. So the steel carving bars, Steel only make chainsaw bars for steel chainsaws, so they tend to have only these two holes here and an oiler hole. But all the other manufacturers, Oregon, Sugihara and Canon, they all make them with a universal mount. And the useful thing about that is that they'll go on any small chainsaw. So for instance, if we look at, this is an Echo 280 WES. These saws here, the Echoes especially, oil through the other end of the tensioner hole. So instead of oiling through, let's get a bit closer here, instead of having a specific oiler hole, they oil through the opposite side of the tensioner hole. So that goes on there like that. When you put the, you need to make sure with these bars that everything's clean and tidy, because when you come to put the side plate cover on, it needs to make sure it blocks off the other end of the holes. So I've just added the bolt on there so it's easier to point. So here's where it's going to oil the drive links. So the side plate needs to cover this area nice and snugly, and that then stops the oil from coming through that hole and leaking. So possibly one of the disadvantages of having a non-specific bar. So again, with this universal mount carving bar, you'll see it'll go on this small Echo. Even though the end of the bar is closed, it will still fit on the steel, on the smaller steels, and it has the oiler hole there for the smaller steels. Onto Dolmar, and again they tend to oil through the other side of the tensioner hole, but it'll go on there and it will work fine on the small Dolmars. And then Husky, slightly larger Husky this one, but again it's got a dedicated oiler hole. You can probably just see, although you've got a dedicated oiler hole for the Huskies, which is that one there, some oil is going to come out through there. But again, as long as the side plate is fitted securely, that won't be an issue. But again, it's just something to think about when you're using these bars. The useful thing is that you can use one bar on all your different small chainsaws, and it's interchangeable. Before, it just used to be carving bars that had this mount, but now Sugihara have got, they do a BN, it's called their BN6 mount. So when you look at a Sugihara part number, the BN6, that is their part number for a small universal mount bar. But you've also now got sprocket nose bars, and these will also go on all the small chainsaws. This one is actually a quarter pitch nose sprocket nose bar. And the good thing there is that when you look at these saws here, Echo, Steel and Husky have all got inboard sprockets. And okay, it's not that bad to change those, but it is a bit fiddly and a bit of a pain. You have to block the piston and fiddle around. So if you wanted to go from a carving bar to a sprocket nose, on the whole you have to change the sprocket, because this is, at the moment, this is a quarter pitch drive sprocket for a carving setup. But say I want to do some cross cutting with that saw, I have to change the sprocket back to 3/8 low pro. Well, now with the Sugihara bars, it saves you having to do that. You can now just put on a sprocket nose bar without having to change the sprocket, and the chain should fit that as well. So that's a 12-inch sprocket nose bar. So one of the main advantages is it's the same chain you're using on that dime tip bar. You can use the same chains on this sprocket nose bar, and it saves you from having to change this. This is fitted with a quarter pitch drive sprocket as well. Saves you having to change this drive sprocket, because both bars use the same chain, 68 drive links, and both bars use a quarter pitch chain. So it's all, not only the bar's universal and will fit on other saws, but the same 68 drive link chain will fit on that bar. And we also have some 3/8 low pro BN6 mount bars, and some 3/8 043, so the low profile version of 3/8 low pro. So again, you can use these bars on all your small chainsaws and they'll fit and run the same chains.